Good afternoon, and welcome to the Labor Forum for Employers and Workers amidst COVID-19, presented to you by the Israel Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Please welcome your host for this afternoon's event, ICCP Director, Mr. Roberto Zozobrado.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Labor Forum on Employers and amidst COVID-19. It's going to be a very interesting afternoon for all of us. I'd like you to prepare yourselves for a very, very exciting and very informative event, which will cater to all your labor-related issues and concerns. Whatever you may have, we will try to answer them this afternoon. But first, let's pray for guidance and invite our board member, Ms. Rose Galang, to lead us in our invocation. Rose.
Let us open our hearts to the Lord and pray. Thank you for this new day, Lord. We come to you today, asking for your guidance, wisdom, for this another afternoon of learning. Guide our speakers as they share with us useful information and help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we actively participate in this timely event. Continue to remind us that all that we do today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the service of our fellow men, and for the greater glory of you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Rose. And now let's spark our spirit of nationalism as we listen with respect to the national anthems of our two countries. First, we will play the Philippine national anthem, immediately followed by the national anthem of Israel.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, helas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Upang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit kong pagaw, ay hinatang tulakaw
Thank you very much. For the information of everybody, we are also live on the ICCP Facebook page, so feel free to like and share. You may also follow us on Instagram at israelchamber.ph or Twitter at israelchamberph and on LinkedIn. Of course, this event wouldn't have been made possible without the help of the following: our platinum members, Ethiopian Airlines, and Exlinkevents. Our gold members, Dayanan Business Consultancy, Dusit Thani Manila, Paragon ICC, Star K Kosher, Watermatic Philippines, and Exceed. Our event sponsors are Prime Builders and Asia TV. To all of them, we thank them for the support. And now let's hear from our ICCP President, Mr. Yorai Ofek, for his opening remarks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome all of our guests, and I would like to thank Attorney Ana Dionan and Mr. Dominique Totai from the Department of Labor and Employment. I would like to thank all of our guests for joining us this afternoon. I'm excited to have everyone for our forum, not like previous events when the content is being delivered by the speaker. This time we are dedicating time for questions and participants of our guests. As a foreigner in the Philippines, I feel that sometimes labor, it's much different than what we are used to. And it's one of the main challenges of every business owner, businessman, and managers in various industries. With this opportunity to talk to people directly from the Department of Labor, it's a great way to understand better and avoid any problems, and actually creating the process much easier and much smoother for business owners and managers. I'm hoping for an insightful afternoon. I would like to tell everyone to please join us in the ICCP. We still have many events towards the year, and looking forward to keep serve our members and non-members in this upcoming year. I would like to thank Mr. Bob, our director, for organizing and moderating this event, and to our sponsors and members. Thank you very much and enjoy this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Yorai Ofek. Before we go on, I'd like to remind everybody to please submit your questions by writing them down in the chat box. I know you'll have a lot of questions that you'd like to raise. We will see to it that they'll get answered. All of them will get answered throughout the forum. And just enter your questions in the chat box. And now we go to the pièce de résistance of this afternoon's event. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the past months have been very difficult for all of us. We have all been very busy trying to make both ends meet, trying to resuscitate our respective businesses towards jump-starting our economy. And we have been very busy trying to figure out ways, what can we do in spite of the many lockdowns or the many quarantine restrictions that have been imposed on businesses by the Interagency Task Force. We would like to know, as you more information on our relationship with our employees. What is legal? What can we do for our employees? What shouldn't we do for our employees? That is the reason why we have this labor forum today. And we have invited our very good friends from the Department of Labor and Industry, Department of Labor and Employment. Our first guest is USEC or Undersecretary Ana Colting Joni, who is a certified public accountant, as well as career executive service officer and a member of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines Baguio chapter. She started her career in the Department of Labor and Employment as senior clerk and continued to rise from the ranks, serving as Labor Standard and Welfare Officer, Senior Labor and Employment Officer, Chief Labor and Employment Officer. She was also the Labor Attaché Designate in Brunei Darussalam, Director 3, Director 4, and Undersecretary in various Department of Labor and Employment offices. She has long years of experience and exposure in the department's regional operations, policy and program development, and overseas operations. The other lady that we invited is Assistant Secretary Dominique Rubia Tutay, who earned her master's in development education from the University of Santo Tomas and her master's in development planning from the University of Queensland in Australia. She is the concurrent director of the Bureau of Local Employment, which is responsible for promoting full and decent employment through policy and program development. She was also a member of various Philippine delegations negotiating free trade agreements and is currently engaged in measures to mitigate the employment impact of COVID-19, particularly on measures included in the government's National Employment Recovery Strategy for 2021 and 2022. So, ladies and gentlemen, here are the superstars of the Department of Labor and Employment. I call them superstars because they're always on TV, being invited to different kinds of fora. And here they are with us today. That's why we're very honored and we're very happy that they took time out to join us this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, Yusek Ana and Asek Nikki.
Thank you. I may be the one to acknowledge. Thank you, Bob, for a very, very kind introduction for both of us. But truly, we thank you for the invitation and we hope that we would be of help and make your time productive this afternoon. Thank you. Asik Nikki.
Okay, thank you also, Bob. Good afternoon, Yusek Ana. And I'm really happy that you are with me. She's actually the expert, not me. That's why I always tag her along with me. But I don't know, Bob, if we will proceed direct to the presentation and then we go to the Q&A later.
It's ready.
Yeah, and it's our first time to be engaged by the Israel Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So thank you for this opportunity to present to you and provide you some information related to labor and employment. All right, so if we be allowed to share our screen. All right, so we'll be looking at the various initiatives of the Department of Labor and Employment towards the recovery process because of this COVID-19 pandemic. And for this afternoon's presentation, it's divided into three. We'll give you information about the impact of, I know you really feel this one, the impact of COVID-19 in our employment situation. And then we'll go to the responses of the Philippines, particularly the government when it comes to policies and programs to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on employment. And finally, as mentioned by Sir Bob, we will be sharing with you some updates on our National Employment Recovery Strategy, which is our blueprint actually for the country's economic recovery. Okay, so let's proceed first to the impact on our at the macroeconomic level. So you would see that the COVID-19 has really put us down in terms of our economic performance. There were 5 quarters where our growth domestic product is at negative, but we were happy to note that in the second quarter of this year, we were able to bounce back at 11.8% of our gross domestic product. We're not really sure if we can sustain this growth throughout the year, for the remainder of the year, because we have experienced another ECQ in August, and now we have granular lockdowns at the community or barangay or even local level. So in terms of our labor market situation, particularly unemployment, we are already gaining some positive notes in terms of our employment situation if we compare that to the whole year of 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit us. So in terms of our unemployment rate, we have already improved so far. This is the lowest. The July 2021 labor force survey result gave us 6.9% unemployment rate, as opposed to the 10.3% annual average for 2020. But that is still high, because the 6.9% translates to 3.1 Filipinos unemployed. The pre-pandemic unemployment rate in the country is at 5.1 to 5.3%. So there's still a lot of things that we should do for us to be able to get back to our pre-pandemic state. Okay, so what are some of the responses of the Philippines when it comes to the COVID-19? So you might have heard about the various financial support program that we are giving to the workers, either in the formal sector, informal sector, and even our returning OFWs. So we were able to provide a little over 4 million workers some financial assistance, with a total disbursement of about 21 billion pesos. And that would be under Bayanihan 1 and 2. From the formal sector workers, we were able to provide we were able to reach actually about 2 million affected workers. And you would see there that more than 10 billion have already been spent in terms of the financial support. We gave something like 5,000 pesos, but that's just a one-time financial assistance for those workers who have been affected by the pandemic. It's really not much, but at some point, at least, it helped our formal sector workers. Then we also have, for informal sector workers, providing them a minimum of 10 working days, and they get to be paid minimum wage prevailing in the region where they come from. And for the returning OFWs, we gave them about 10,000 pesos, or about, that's $200 for each of the OFW affected, both on site, because there are still OFWs who are on site and are not able to return back to the Philippines. And the assistance also includes those who have already returned to the Philippines. Okay, next slide, please. For policy issuances or guidelines in the form of labor advisories, department orders, or even joint guidelines by the Department of Labor and Employment and the Department of Trade and Industry, most of the policies actually focused on flexible work arrangements, because we know how the COVID-19 has impacted our business. And it's sad to note that a number, thousands, are still on temporary closure at this time, while some are in their flexible work arrangement, not operating 100%. And for those unfortunate ones, they have either retrenched or permanently closed. So the policy guidance of the Department of Labor and Employment and that of DTI would deal with payment during flexible work arrangements, 13th month pay, among others. Our policies also deal with, of course, observance of the minimum health standards. And I think in the next slide, we also gave emphasis on safety seal certification program of both the DTI and the DOLE, as we really want offices or establishments, companies to open in various quarantine levels that we are experiencing. Okay. There are also some policies issued when it comes to entry of foreign workers in the country. So you may have noticed or you may have heard about travel ban exemption for foreign workers who wants to enter into the country, either for employment purpose or for business purposes. And that would require travel ban exemption issued by the Department of Foreign Affairs. But the role of the Department of Labor and Employment there is to recommend to the DFA the issuance of a travel ban exemption. And recently, there was this decision coming from the IATF that working permit for foreign nationals intending to work here in the Philippines can already be obtained, and the establishments, the Philippine-based establishments, can apply on behalf of the foreign national for the working permit, even if the foreign national is still in the country of origin prior to coming here into the Philippines. So we process work permit applications for those foreign nationals intending to really work here in the country. So there is also an issuance, which is Labor Advisory number 16, series of 2021, that we have issued because of that IATF decision. Okay, we now go to the National Employment Recovery Strategy, and maybe you have heard about this as well. This is the Philippine government's master plan for recovery of the pandemic-struck labor market. So the National Employment Recovery Strategy, there is a task force which is headed by the Department of Trade and Industry and co-chaired by DOLE and TESDA. And together, we are joined by 17 other national government agencies in the bureaucracy for us to move forward policies and programs that would help us in the recovery process. Okay, and we're happy that the President has also signed Executive Order number 140, which really institutionalized not just the task force, but also acknowledging the different policies and programs that are enrolled. And you would see here on slide the 8-point employment recovery agenda of the Philippine government towards recovery. Okay. Next slide, please. We also partnered with the Employers Confederation of the Philippines in terms of creating and generating more employment opportunities for the Filipinos. Despite the pandemic, there's still bright spots or in terms of sectors such as, for instance, the construction industry, manufacturing, and also our information technology and business process management. So they committed 1 million jobs until 2021, but this generation of 1 million jobs is hinged on a number of wish lists that they have requested from the government. So we're thankful that we were able to facilitate some of their wish lists so that they will be able to really fully recover from this pandemic. So in the next slide, you would see vaccination is actually the primary concern of our employers, because they find it hard, maybe not just to procure, but also to have their workers vaccinated. So what happened was our secretary, Bebot Bello, have requested vaccine SAR, Secretary Galvez. He requested for less than 500,000 vaccines for our workers in the two sectors. And we were able to get the nod of Secretary Galvez. And last week, we just have our kickoff of the vaccination program for the construction and manufacturing sector. So you would see on screen the vaccination program that we did for the construction sector and the manufacturing sector. And we were able to vaccinate about 1,046. So in the coming, this week, there's another batch 2 for Manila for vaccinating about 1,500 workers, also coming from the two sectors that I have mentioned. Why the two sectors? Because you would note that in the 11.8% GDP that we were able to achieve in the second quarter, these two sectors are really the primary contributors of our growth in the country. And next week and in the coming weeks and months, we hope to vaccinate more Filipino workers so that they will be gaining more protection as we recover from the pandemic. Okay. So moving forward, the department remains focused on safely reopening the economy and sustaining the continuous improvement of our labor market. And we really put a premium on occupational safety and health in the workplace, which is paramount to the DOLE's mandate. We also reiterate our call to our workers and also our businessmen to continue the strict implementation of the minimum public health standards. And let us continue to be vigilant and avoid complacency by adhering to the basic minimum public health standards, such as proper wearing of face mask and face shield, washing of hands, and of course, social distancing. With the continuous rollout of our vaccination program, we anticipate less humps and bumps on the road to recovery. And we urge all workers and priority groups to get vaccinated also and help minimize the social and economic disruptions caused, of course, by COVID-19. We also continue to be one with the country's economic managers in safely reopening the economy and also backing much needed support for businesses through available incentives to ensure sustained operations and the continued recovery of the labor market. So that's all for now. We do hope to entertain more queries from your end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Asak Nikki, thank you. We have some questions already in the chat box, but I'd like to put up first my own question. I actually heard this comment from a worker, one of our employees based here in Manila, and they were wondering, why is it that the financial assistance given to OFWs is higher than those who are based locally when the OFWs are already earning a lot from abroad? Okay, that's a tough one, I guess. No? So how do you answer that question?
I think it really depends, Bob, on the funds that we have. Initially, we have what do you call this? We recommended for 10,000 at that time, but we did not anticipate really the impact of COVID-19, how many will be affected. So given because if you recall, under the Bayanihan 1, we didn't get any funds from the Bayanihan law. We only spent our own budget for 2020 at that time. So for us to be able to reach more affected workers, then we settled at 5,000 each. And then come Bayanihan 2, even if we got funding from based on the law, we realized that millions of workers are affected. So as much as possible, we want to reach more workers. If you notice in our establishment report, about 4 million as well have been affected locally, and not all of them were able to get financial assistance from the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program or CAMP.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Another question: the unused funds from Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2, what happens to them? Will they be used for a Bayanihan 3 and allow more employees to get financial aid?
Okay, under Bayanihan 1 and 2, specific to the Department of Labor and Employment, we don't have unspent funds. We spend our budget allocated for the purpose. Maybe for other agencies, they have unutilized funds, but for the Department of Labor, we don't have. What we do hope that Bayanihan 3 will be passed. It's in the Senate already. It's been passed in House of Representatives, but I've heard some news that it may be tackled in the Senate. But currently, we're still also in our budget deliberation for 2022. So the window really is either for 2022 budget, and we will be we have a number of proposals actually submitted to the Office of the President, but those proposals for funding to respond to the workers who still needs to be assisted is really dependent also on the availability of the funds from the national government.
Okay, that's clear. Okay, thank you. Now here's a question that was submitted. It's kind of long. So a company originally employs 48-hour work week from Monday to Saturday and has employed a compressed work week from Monday to Friday with a 9.6 working hours per day to be flexible during pandemic. Employees are getting a fixed weekly salary. So question number 1, if the employee will be absent for 1 day, will the absence be equivalent to 8 hours, or is it 9.6 hours deduction following the no work, no pay rule? Let's tackle question number 1 first.
Okay, maybe we can have Yusek Anna to respond to that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was reading the question. I was disconnected for a while, so let me scroll down. Okay. Bob, I'd like to treat the questions. There are 2 questions here and then one sub question because this is what I think about this question by Jane Lopez. The way I look at it is that this is not the flexible work arrangement that we were referring to in the labor advisory. This is a regular compressed work scheme. Why? Because there is no deduction, there is no reduction, in the number of hours. Even if the regular work days was Monday to Saturday, so that's 48 hours, and then she said they just compress it into Monday to Friday, but there is the 8 hours was distributed from Monday to Friday. So there is no reduction actually of the number of hours. So having said that, if the employee will be absent for 1 day, will the absence be equivalent to 8 hours? Okay, the absence is equivalent to 8 hours because remember the 1.6 excess hour in a day is treated as overtime. So it is still on my premise, it is still an 8-hour work. The number 2, in case of leave of holiday or for the employee to reach the 48-hour quota for the week, will the leave or holiday be treated only for 8 hours? Again, it is 8 hours. If treated as 8 hours, does it mean that the 1.6 excess during the leave or holiday will be allocated to the other 4 working days? No. meaning the worker will have to work longer hours for the other days so as to avoid salary deduction. No, because remember, the 1.6 excess is treated as overtime. So if he's allowed to work, then they pay overtime. It's still an 8-hour plus overtime. On the day that he did not work, then there is no overtime.
Okay, good. Okay, that question actually was from MIPS Mardi Semiliano. Okay, looks like I don't see any other questions submitted, but I encourage all of you who are listening and watching to please submit your questions so that you won't have any issues about labor that would still be in your mind, and you can start operating your business with the full cooperation of your employees, and you'll know what to do, what is legal and what is not. Now, there was a question in the past about companies, because most of the people that really are having most of the companies that are really having a hard time now are the MSMEs, right? And MSMEs are the most important because they represent more than 90% of the total businesses in the Philippines, and accounting for about 65% of employment in the country. So, and they are the ones that have been severely affected by the pandemic. And some of them have to close down. Some of them are on their way to extinction, and that's really quite a big problem. So there was a company, there was somebody who asked me before, they plan to close their business temporarily and give whatever they can afford to their employees as to help out their employees while there's no business coming in. When the company comes back to life and is reopened, that company is still going to see if it can reach the same income as it did before the pandemic, right? So the owner of the company will open the business not knowing if they will get in the same revenues as before. So is it legal for that company to get back the employees but do not pay them the previous salary and pay them only what the company can afford? Is that legal?
We wouldn't advise that because obviously it would be a violation. Because the employer-employee relationship has not been severed during the temporary closure, so they will just be on layoff. But once the company decides to open and take them in, then the benefits that has been given or the wage actually being received by the workers will still be the amount of wage that they will get. Our suggestion is for the company to really study hard on how many of the workers will they be able to take in when they decide to reopen.
Take in and giving them the same benefits and salaries as before the pandemic.
Correct, correct.
Okay. All right, that's clear. Now, here is from Rose Marie Galang. There are several fora stating that pre-pandemic atmosphere might still come back by 2024 to 2025. And many industries, specifically the travel and tourism industry, seems to be having a hard time bouncing back. Can DOLE help provide list of jobs and businesses that will more or less survive and surface in the coming years? Provide a bulletin of such for public awareness and information. In other words, they need help in coming up, if you can come up with a list of businesses that would be easier to bounce back after the pandemic compared to the ones of the travel and tourism industry.
If I may take that question, Bob.
Yeah.
There's actually, we published Jobs Fit Labor Market Information Report, and that provides us information on what are the key employment generating sectors in the next 5 to 10 years. And we have updated that report to incorporate the impact of the COVID-19. So we see in our updated report that among the 10 key employment generating sectors that we have identified during this administration, some of them are winners, some of them are losers. So when I say winners, it would be the health sector. It's also the information technology and business process outsourcing that are resilient and winners. In terms of construction, they are both winners and losers, because losers during lockdowns, they cannot really continue the project, but now it's really bouncing back. For the manufacturing sector, some of them are also winners and losers, but if the company is able to repurpose in terms of the production of its goods, then you will be a winner. So that's how we, and we do hope, but that at the end of the year, we will again provide an update on the market information, and we will gladly share with you. But
Yes.
if, for instance, some of your members would want to repurpose, recalibrate, then the government is here to help you. This is what we're doing also with the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. They will say, oh, this is our difficulty in hiring, blah, 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 blah. And so we're like a facilitator so that they are able to reach the goal that they want as business.
That's good. So you will provide us that list when it comes along, so we can also share it with our members.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Here's another question. This time it's coming from Mr. Sani De Castro. We are in the MSME industry. Is it legal for us to require employees to be vaccinated and not hire people who have not yet been vaccinated? Who's gonna tackle that question? we don't have anybody for the DOH. Yeah.
But that's actually discrimination, Yusek Anne.
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
Is it legal to require employees to be vaccinated and not hire people who have not yet been vaccinated?
Well, time and time again, the secretary made announcements that there is no basis in law to do that. And also second, there is no enough vaccines that vaccinate everybody else. So we don't advise that a policy will be adopted along that line.
Yeah. Well, I have my own thoughts on that one. But, you know, some people don't really want to get vaccinated. Even if we already have an overflow of vaccines, some people just don't want to be vaccinated, right? And yet they want to get the same benefits as those who have been vaccinated. I mean, you know, that's how I look at it. And well, anyway.
But if you notice, Bob, in this recent alert levels that we are having, only those who have been fully vaccinated are allowed, for instance, to go to the restaurant and dine in. So probably that's some perks or benefits for those who have really been vaccinated. But really, we encourage your workers to get vaccinated to have an added protection against the virus.
Really, yeah. In fact, that's why I favor the proposal of Joey Concepcion. You know, the Bakuna bubbles. I don't know if you've heard of the Bakuna bubble. Similar to what the alert number 4 is offering now, only the vaccinated ones. Okay, anyway, here's another question. What is really the simple explanation of the so-called no employee-employer relationship? Did you get that?
Well, simply, there is no more relationship. I mean, the employee severed its relationship to the company, or vice versa, the company severed its relationship with the employee. So that is what we mean by no employer-employee relationship.
Okay. So it stops there. The moment the severance of relationship between the employee and employer, that's it. Everything else follows, benefits and all.
Yeah, and unless the one that is asking question would refer to the contractualization or regularization issue, that would be a different thing.
Okay.
What's the premise?
Okay. Another one. Are employers allowed to slash employee salaries and remove benefits because nowadays times are hard?
Well, in our labor advisory on flexible work arrangements, we did give an opening along that line, but with the consent of the worker, but not in relation to wages. Only those benefits that are being given. Like for example, if the company has been giving its workers, say, rice allowance, then they may discuss that since times are difficult, then they may stop giving that. But some companies interpret it as we allowed the reduction of wage. No, it doesn't refer to the monetary benefits. It refers to other benefits being given.
The fringe benefits.
Yep.
So in that case, the company still has to meet with the employees and get the consent of the employees, or just tell the employees?
Well, you can never get a 100% consent.
Precisely.
It is just say consulting. I think we use the word consult with the workers.
Mm-hmm.
Hindi naman do not remove it arbitrarily, because they would raise a lot of questions. So
Yes.
the process of informing them is very crucial.
Yeah. So you chose the right word, consult. You consult with employees, make them understand, I guess, the predicament that you're in.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question from Maggie Canlas. Will you have any program for the employers also? We made sure that our employees have received all the ayuda from different government agencies, but employers received nothing aside from the offered loans. Does the government have funds for the employers as well?
Well, that is not our area, but I understand that the Department of Trade and Industry have programs for the employers, say soft loans. I'm not familiar with the requirements or how it is, but there is a window for loans.
Okay, so we would advise person who was this who asked the question, Maggie Canlas, to contact the DTI. Is that it?
Yeah, they do have programs.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
maybe for information also, Bob, the department also pushed at some point a wage subsidy program. This is a 3 months where we will subsidize a portion of the wages of the workers on behalf of the company. But the proposal, as I mentioned in earlier, was that it's really hinged on the availability of the funds from the national government. So it's still there, it's still up in the air, it's at the office of the president. But rest assured that we rest assured the employers that we are also thinking about their capacity to pay, just to preserve employment,
Hopefully that comes about, that
Yes.
comes to life. Yeah. Okay, for Yusek Ana, this is from Lailene May Pacanas. In relation to the topic of compressed work week, a company is working 45 hours a week, 9 hours a day. Or is it? Yeah, 9 hours a day, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday. I'd like to clarify if the additional 1 hour a day should be computed as overtime.
I'm reading also a follow-up in relation to that, Bob. I'm reading a question or follow-up in the chat box from
Okay.
Mardi. Yeah. There were issuances on compressed work week. So he is mentioning I think this is a labor advisory issued in 2009. I'd like to check this because by understanding there were several issuances on the compressed work week pre-pandemic setting. So I owe you this one. I will check.
Okay.
And so then I think also the question on overtime, the one that you gave
Yes.
recently. So give me time, I will check with that.
And yeah, they can you let us know through our, let me know and I can pass it on to the secretariat.
Yes, this is a compressed work week before the pandemic. So I'll ask some of the our bureau to give me, I'm very sure there were some issuances on this. Hindi lang
All right. Some companies are doing reduced work weeks to save on labor costs. Employees come in every other day instead of every day. And if they don't work, they do not get paid. How long can companies do this?
Well, the labor that falls under the flexible work arrangement for as long as this situation persists and we're not withdrawing the labor advisory, then it can be as long as the situation exists.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. Tourism business. This is from Bel Florendo of El Nido, Palawan. Tourism business was also severely affected by this pandemic. Most employers diverted on some sources of income but felt sad about their employees. Like here in El Nido, we merely depend on tourism. Most of our employees were able to avail of the incentive, 5,000, but not enough to cover up their needs for a longer time. Any more assistance from DOLE for employees?
That's the role of ICCP. It's working very hard. We hope.
Yeah. The 5,000 that we are providing for workers in the formal sector is really one-time benefit. But if you fall under the category of, say, displaced worker, then you can be able also to be benefited by some of our programs. For instance, if you want to venture into small business, then you can request for livelihood assistance from our DOLE regional or field offices if they want to venture into small businesses.
Okay. This next question, I think I can answer this, but I'll still make you answer this. This is from Florlyn de la Peña. What if the employees do not want to submit to any health protocols of the company, like swab testing and wearing of proper masks at work? Is it okay to give sanctions to these employees? What's your answer?
Of course. There are already protocols. We also issued, I think we issued labor advisory on this, that the companies are given I think the company, it's not directly said, but the companies can issue or update their company policy in relation to compliance to COVID-19 by their workers. So they have to have that policy so that when it is violated, then the workers can be sanctioned.
Yeah.
They can duplicate or they can just restate the issuances being issued by DOH, especially on COVID-19 protocols.
Yeah. I think these health and safety protocols that are now implemented, I think they should be regarded as similar to like wearing a uniform, right? I mean, if you're not you don't wear a uniform, you don't belong here. Out you go. Simple as that. Okay, here's another question. Let's see. Is this allowed? Work hours per month is reduced by 40%, while basic salaries is reduced by 30% due to the effect of the pandemic, slowing down of business in the pandemic. Is this allowed? That's from Moriel Carrion.
Applying the principle of no work, no pay, then you only pay your workers the amount that they work. So I cannot reconcile why you reduce 40 while the basic salary is reduced to 30%. The principle is no work, no pay. Even if they are monthly paid, I think she mentioned about work hours per month, it's still the same. The principle is the same, no work, no pay. If they are not allowed to work or they are allowed to work only 40%, then their salary will be reduced by 40%.
Okay, yeah. All right, so Mips Mardis Emiliano submitted her email. So I'll pass this on to Jane. Jane, take care of the email address so we
Yes.
can forward to her whatever USEC Anna is going to send to us. Okay, and now this question from Ramil Bolilan. It's a follow-up question actually, because he says that here in our institution, we have a COS and job orders employees. It is stipulated in their contract. It is understood that this contract does not create an employee-employer relationship between the first and the second party. What does that mean?
This is not a public sector or a public company, right?
It doesn't look like it is. Parang educational siguro?
Private. Kasi I don't like to give an answer. I want to understand. It may be a link to the regularization issue.
Oh, it doesn't say.
Job
It says
order, COS.
COS and the job orders are still connected in our institution. I don't know what institution is referring to. Maybe educational institution or
Education.
anyway, we can ask him to clarify later on
Yes,
as
yes.
we go along. Maybe he will do that. It says in a state, tama, I was right. It's a state university.
So that's government, no? That's government.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry to say that the civil service allows contract of service and job orders.
So
Period.
that's it. That's it. You don't want to incriminate yourself. Okay, let's keep it at that because we want to invite you again sometime in the future. We don't want you to be blacklisted. Okay, let's see. Are there any other questions? Looks like I've tackled all the questions we have. We'll give some more time, but what is the most common problem that has been brought up to the Department of Labor and Employment during the pandemic, based on your experience?
Well, if we base it on our SENA program, meaning the single entry approach, this is a program basically conciliation, conciliate the problem. It is not a case per se. If we base that on record, then the most common actually is that workers are just let go without paying their salaries. That's very common, without paying their salaries. Also, just terminating them instantly without telling them why, what are the reasons. So they come and file for or complain actually for illegal dismissal. And then the other one is on layoff. They never call the workers back, no communication for a very, very long time, even after the 6-month period, that the extended 6-month period. So I think those are the 3 common problems that we encounter based on our SENA record.
And there are also cases, Ma'am Ana and Bob, that the problem with the employees, they don't want to be reporting physically in the office, even if there is already a recall order. So that's related to, I guess, one of the questions here. But something like nag-positive, and then the employee doesn't want to be tested.
Yeah.
So can you terminate? In the instance that I have mentioned, for instance, if there's already a recall order, then the worker does not report, then the due process, it has to be, termination should be within the due process.
Okay. Good. So here, can we request for a copy of DOLE advisory regarding working permits for foreign nationals? Okay.
Yeah, sure. But you can actually download that in our website, dole.gov.ph. But we will share a copy with Bob, and
Okay.
Bob can just share with you.
It would be good. So I can leave it with our secretariat, and that'll be made available to all members.
Yes.
Okay. Here's another question. About MSMEs again. I told you, most of the problematic employers now are the SMMEs. We sometimes encounter situations where parents ask us to allow the 17-year-old sons to work as adults, and we refuse because of the child labor law. Is there any exception to this law?
Labor, what is it?
Child labor law.
Child labor.
Let me say.
Minor, ma'am, minor.
Yeah, it's a minor. MSMEs sometimes encounter situations where parents ask them to allow 17-year-old sons to work as adults. And of course, they refuse because of the child labor law. Is there any exception to this law?
Well, our law on child labor, of course, 15 and below, that's a no-no. Except in the entertainment industry where they get permits. Above 15 to 8, below 18, you need to, there's an exemption there, they're allowed to work, but only in non-hazardous work and under the supervision of their parents.
Okay.
Non-hazardous. That's the only window for them to work.
All
And
right.
non-hazardous work is contained in one of the department orders that also DOLE issued.
Mhm. Okay. So if a company closes temporarily because of the financial situation brought about by the pandemic, is there a certain time limit for that company to reopen once again and be still avail of the same licenses and things like that, or does it fall under your purview, under your turf? Like a company closes temporarily, and because of the pandemic, we don't know how long it's going to open again. For maybe it'll stay closed for 1.5 years, 2 years. And then is there a time limit for it to be able to use the same business permits, licenses, and everything as before it closed?
Not directly under our jurisdiction, because that's a business decision.
Okay.
Business decision, and the licenses, I guess you have to go back to who are issuing the license, like the LGUs, for him to operate. Our only advice is that if you are temporarily closing for such a long time, maybe you have to make decisions already with respect to your workers. Pay them what is due them already, because it's too long.
Okay. Okay. Here's another question that was sent to me directly. What is in your own honest opinion, is the Bayanihan 3 going to be approved?
Oh, well, I think I will give that to Asik Nikki, because I don't like to make any statement on that. I hear things, but I think Asik Nikki can give you the official stand. Or
Okay, Asik Nikki, you're in the hot seat.
No, we're really not sure, Bob, honestly, because I have mentioned that the 2022 budget is already being deliberated now. So any additional funding from the government coffers would be really difficult, especially now that we have the ECQ in August. If there's no ECQ probably in August, then we can have that wage subsidy approved, as mentioned to you, because resources are really scarce nowadays from the national government.
And going back to those Bayanihan 1, Bayanihan 2, there was a comment that I heard before on the making the financial assistance available. The availability of the financial assistance has a time limit, right? That you have to file it within a specific period of time.
Yeah.
And if you don't, that's it. You lose your chance.
Exactly.
They were saying that why can't the availability be extended for a long time? I mean, like forever, because look what's happening now. The pandemic is still on. So why can't the other people still continue to avail of it? That was a question that I had, that I had earlier. Why does it have to have a time limit?
Well, the law sets the time limit, so we have to comply. The law says from this to this period.
Oh, okay. Isn't there a way for the Department of Labor and Employment to fight for something that will make the funds available for a longer period of time?
Oh, you should see the Office of ASIC Nikki, how they fight for
in every fora, especially at the IATF Technical Working Group, we always argue with the rest of the bureaucracy that we need this and that for the workers. But of course, we're just but one small voice in the entire bureaucracy. So what we do is in the 2022 budget, we really are getting support coming from our legislators to have higher funds for the Department of Labor and Employment.
Okay, so you get to sit at the meetings of the IATF, ASIC Nikki?
Yes.
Okay, my question to you now is this.
My lips are sealed, Bob.
How much voice is my question? How much voice does the DOLE have in the IATF?
It really depends on the topic that's being discussed. For instance, when it comes to foreign nationals, where I also sit in one of the technical working groups there, we really push for the interest of the government. When it comes to social amelioration, the louder voice there would be the DBM and the DSWD, not DOLE.
Yeah.
For the data analytics, it's more of course, the experts. So I just have a listening ear, but ASIC Tesco Kweko is also with me in that data analytics group. And I just allow her to say her piece there. So that's how it is at the technical level of the IATF. But for most of the decisions that they pronounced, we're not part of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, I'm looking at it as an outsider. I mean, from my point of view, when all I know is from reading the papers and from watching TV, I get this feeling that the employees are the last that are being considered. The fate of the employees are quite, not up there in the priority.
Well, you have to understand, Bob, because we are live. I have to.
I know.
You have to understand that there's always this a balance between, of course, the health of the people and also the economy. So it's really a tough decision for our decision makers.
Yeah, I know. It really is. Yeah. Okay, so and there's I think there's a follow-up question here from Margie Consolacion regarding my comment earlier that, okay, Bayanihan 1, Bayanihan 2, there's so many unused funds. She's asking, what happens to the funds that are not used? What, I mean, does but you said that as far as DOLE is concerned, you've used up all your funds, right?
Yeah.
So it's only the other agencies that have unused funds. So I presume these agencies, what, they return it to the government or they use it for some other purpose, or I'm not familiar.
It goes back to the treasury.
Goes back to the treasury.
Because you cannot use it for other purpose as defined or set by the law.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to send everyone a copy of the presentation? Yes, we will. All right, so may I ask from you ladies your parting words? And I'd like to thank you for your patience and for your tenacity. I think this is the nth time that I've invited you to speak, and you still are bubbling with energy. So I'd like to hear from you your last words before we go.
Well, for me, Bob, this group, your group, are, I understand, Israeli-based companies. And based on my experience, they're usually compliant with the law. And I would be sympathetic if they are suffering right now because of the pandemic. Most of the Israeli companies I met are from the BPO industry. Very few from manufacturing. So based on that, I think most of them are really, really compliant with labor laws. Thank you.
So you don't have a problem. The government doesn't have a problem with the companies. Asik Nikki.
Yeah, for me, I think for our business sector, rest assured that the government is really doing its best for us to be able to get back on our feet. And with the National Employment Recovery Strategy, we have put businesses and workers into focus so that we always believe that in the recovery process, the business should be able to get back its feet and that no Filipino worker is left behind.
Okay, on that note, ladies, I'd like to thank you very, very much for the time that you've spent with us this afternoon, and of course for your wisdom and your expertise, and still with a smiling face, even if we ask you the stupidest questions, maybe.
There's no stupid question, Bob.
I know. No, but I'm sure that you have already encountered most of the questions that we've asked today. And I know that you are there all the time ready for us. So if we should have other questions in our mind, I can assure you that I'll run to you again, send you an email so that we can share the information with our members. Okay, so thank you very much again, Yusek Ana, Asek Nikki. We will see you again next time. Thank you.
Bob, I emailed already the labor advisory, so you can share it with the group.
Wow, that's efficiency to the max. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will share it with the group. Okay, thank you very much, ladies, and from the Department of Labor and Employment. And once again, let me thank the following for their generosity. Our platinum members are Ethiopian Airlines and Exlinkevents. Gold members, Dayanan Business Consultancy, Dusitani Manila, Paragon ICC, Star K Kosher, Watermatic Philippines, and Exceed. And of course, our event sponsors are Prime Builders and Asia TV. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we also invite you to join us on October 7th, that's a Thursday, at 3 p.m. and learn how to turn milk into gold. We have invited Mr. Paco Magsaysay of Carmen's Best Ice Cream and Mr. Danny Fausto of DVF Dairy Farm. Please click the registration link on the chat box or visit our social media platforms for registration details. Also, we invite you to learn about chutzpah. Chutzpah is a very Israeli term. It's a powerful philosophy common among our Israeli friends. We hope to see you on October 27 at 3 p.m. via Zoom. Click the registration link on the chat box and visit our social media platform for registration details. And last but definitely not the least, the registration for our Hebrew for beginners is now open. The event will be in November. Registration fee for members is only 1,000 pesos. For non-members, it's 2,500. Visit our social media platforms for registration details. And so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we bring our event this afternoon to a close. And we thank all of you to have spent your afternoon with us. And I hope those who ask questions, we have cleared all the cobwebs in your mind. And we hope that we have given you the answers that you needed. Thank you again for participating in this labor forum of the Israel Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Thank you very much and have a pleasant afternoon.